The U.S. women's national team are fans of both Google Docs and their new collective bargaining agreement. Celtic could start World War III if they achieve success in their pursuit of Emerson Hyneman. Tigres ensure that it will be an all-Liga MX CONCACAF Champions League final. Liverpool learn the hard way that private schools are expensive. And Serie could be legally coming to a streaming device near you. It's Thursday, April 6, 2017. I'm Taylor Rockwell, and you are listening to The Goalmouth, a podcast collaboration between Dirty Tackle, Howler Magazine, and The Total Soccer Show. Up first, after months of negotiations, the U.S. women's national team and the U.S. Soccer Federation were finally able to reach a deal on a new collective bargaining agreement. As reported by the New York Times, the new CBA includes a sizable increase in base pay for the players and improved match bonuses that could increase annual salaries up to $300,000, with even higher earnings in years featuring a World Cup or an Olympic campaign. The same article also gives interesting insight into how the proposal came to be. Quote, sometimes the suggestions arrived in an overnight email from forward Alex Morgan in France, or a late-night one from midfielder Megan Rapinoe on the West Coast. They sent out anonymous surveys to their teammates to better gauge what people prioritized but might not want to say aloud, and weighed in on legal language and PowerPoint slides in a cache of shared Google Docs. Then they would rehearse what they would say at each negotiating session, and even decide who would say it, end quote. Somehow, I'm not surprised that a team that's been as dominant as the U.S. women's national team has been was able to work together as a unit to achieve lofty goals. So, while the U.S. women's national team and the U.S. Federation seem to have mended fences, the same cannot be said of bitter Scottish Premier League rivals Celtic and Rangers, and that situation isn't likely to change, especially if reports coming out of the UK are to be believed. According to the Daily Record, quote, Celtic are plotting a sensational move to sign on-loan Rangers star Emerson Hyneman for next season. The club have made an inquiry to his parent club Bournemouth about the midfielder's availability in the summer, end quote. Nottingham Forest are also believed to be interested in the 20-year-old American, and I'm pretty much okay with him ending up there, staying at Rangers permanently, or going back to Bournemouth to compete for a starting spot. But moving to Celtic would probably be unwise. I mean, from a career standpoint, it's a better quality team that would likely give him the opportunity to play in the Champions League, but that also means crossing a divide that isn't easily bridged. Just ask Luis Figo how much fans enjoy it when you swap one rival for another. Then again, maybe Hyneman really wants to figure out what it's like to dodge flying pig heads. I know on yesterday's Goalmouth, George asked me to be positive in my stories. Unfortunately, now, if you're a fan of Major League Soccer or Canadian teams in general, it's time for your regularly scheduled depressing CONCACAF Champions League update. The Vancouver Whitecaps fell 2-1 to Tigres in the second leg of their semifinal matchup on Wednesday evening, thereby losing by an aggregate scoreline of 4-1. Vancouver jumped out to an early lead, courtesy of a Breck-Shea volley in the third minute, but things took a turn when the American attacker had to be subbed out only 7 minutes later. They went from bad to worse in the second half as goals from Andre Pierre-Gignac and Damian Alvarez ensured that the CONCACAF Champions League final would be an all-Liga MX affair for the second straight year. Premier League news now. On Wednesday, Chelsea bested Manchester City 2-1, thereby staying 7 points ahead of Tottenham, who had to dramatically come from behind to beat Swansea 3-1, with all three goals coming in the final 6 minutes. Meanwhile, Arsenal walloped West Ham 3-0, and Liverpool conceded a late equalizer in their 2-2 draw with the aforementioned Bournemouth. This all means that there are now only 6 points separating third-place Liverpool from 6th-place Manchester United, albeit with multiple games in hand for a few different teams. So, in terms of the quote-unquote race for the top four, I'll just quote David Mitchell and say, there is still everything to play for and forever to play it in. Staying in England for a moment, that late draw with Bournemouth wasn't the worst result for Liverpool this week. On Wednesday, Jurgen Klopp confirmed that it looks like Sadio Mane will miss the rest of the season after injuring his knee this past weekend in the Merseyside derby. Then came the news that the club itself had been fined £100,000 and banned from signing academy players from English league clubs for 2 years, one of which was suspended, after they were found guilty of tapping up a schoolboy from Stoke City. Liverpool can still sign their own academy players, just not players who have been registered to another Premier League or English Football League academy for 2 years or more. The issue appears to have come to light after the boys' parents complained to the FA that Liverpool had reneged on an agreement to pay the youth's private school fees. See, this is what happens. Send your kids to public school, they definitely get at least some sort of education. Send your kids to private school, suddenly Liverpool can't sign them to a professional contract anymore. I'm pretty sure that's definitely the lesson to be learned here. And finally, do you occasionally yearn to watch Italian soccer, but only in between episodes of The Man in the High Castle? Well, have I got good news for you. According to the Italian website Calcio Finanza, Amazon is interested in purchasing the streaming rights to Serie A for the 2018 through 2021 seasons. As a bit of background, Serie A rights are sold in packages: domestic, international, and streaming. Amazon appear to be solely interested in the streaming rights, which are currently owned in the United States by beIN Sports. So it's unclear whether Amazon are only looking to stream matches in Italy, in the United States, in both, or maybe somewhere else entirely. If Amazon does indeed get involved in streaming Italian soccer, then I'm excited to see what comes next. Netflix might get the Bundesliga because there's lots of quality and some crap. Hulu could get the Eredivisie because people know it's a thing but aren't entirely certain how to watch it. And HBO Go gets the Premier League because they're both kind of expensive. And if there's one thing that both Game of Thrones and England's Top Flight have taught us, it's that top talents can challenge for the crown one season and be forcibly removed from their position the next. And with that, we've come to the end of yet another Goalmouth episode. You can explore all of these stories in more depth by subscribing to our newsletter. The link is in the show notes. I've been Taylor Rockwell. Ryan Bailey will be with you tomorrow. Until then, I'll leave you with today's Goalmouth top tip. If you want to avoid the wrath of the FA, send your kids to public school.